I am Charity, also known as Antihistamine. I am a super fan who was not originally on the panel, but I said, oh my God, I'm a super fan. So I joined because I am obsessed with gay pirates and the fashion and piracy. I mean, who doesn't want to see murder?
Well, it's a very,
Really?
it's a very pirate thing to do, to just decide you're going to be on the panel and
Yeah.
just do it.
I really thought that was part of the goal.
Yeah. Very pirate.
And we let you crash because we like you. My name is Tanya, and I am also one of the Roydish Turtles, kind of one of the original ones, and here with my friendly Tucson delegation. And I fucking love Our Flag Means Death, and it's just great. So yeah, today we're going to talk it through as a crew.
As a crew. Hi, I'm Madam Askew, and running incognito as an American this weekend. Sort of a weird thing I do once a year. And I also absolutely adore Our Flag Means Death. And I'm not going to lie, like, the costuming was absolutely a big part of it for me. But the real thing, the reason I stayed, is because they're so gay. And so I'm excited to talk about that with my besties up here on this panel today. So let's get started. We're going to sort of go into a little bit of like,
I'm just cheating.
yeah, no, here, you can cheat. It's not a test. We can share notes. We're going to start out with Tanya, who's going to walk us through sort of like kind of the basics of the show and all the fun gay nonsense.
Yeah, so Our Flag Means Death was one of these shows, like, when it premiered March 2022. It really was kind of like flew under the radar for a while. But I'd never heard of it. I think I saw a random ad somewhere, but it was one of those, it's the kind of ad that just makes you go, what did I just see? And then a couple of friends were like, have you watched Our Flag Means Death? I'm like, no, what's that? And they're like, oh, it's this pirate show on Max. And I'm like, And then we watched it, and then I became the person who was like, yes, hello, would you like to hear about the gay pirate show?
They didn't really advertise it as a gay pirate show at first. And so that's why I was like, Our Flag Means Death doesn't seem like my kind of thing. But as soon as I heard gay pirates, I'm like, I'm in.
So, like, if I remember correctly, like when the show started, there was no social media for the show at all. Like, they didn't know what they had until like almost the end of season 1. And then they made a Twitter account because the way season 1 built up, oh, by the way, this is a spoiler panel, so we're gonna like be bringing up things from both seasons. So it's like towards the end of season 1, like the tension is high. All these things, there's high stakes on the high seas, and so like people were going nuts on the internet. And then they finally made a Twitter account, and people were like, "Oh my God, they have social media now!" And so like the end of season, at the very end, it's like everyone was hooked, and they're like, "Do we get more? We would like more, please. Can we have some as a treat?" And like that year in June, and I'm pretty sure it was coincide with Pride Month, they announced the renewal. Like this whole community of fans turned up, like was very active on Twitter before it, RIP Twitter. But there was like people producing like all these amazing works of like fan art, fan fiction. And then it got fun because like some of the cast was engaging with this. And then I saw people get a little like, I don't know, because some of it was pretty spicy. But it was just so cool. It was just like this crazy movement of supporting all of our love for a pirate show.
I love that.
Like there is this wildly diverse cast. So it wasn't just like a bunch of like white dudes being pirates.
I'm pretty sure there's only like 4 straight white dudes on the entire show.
And straight is questionable.
Yeah.
Oh, they're all like the villains.
Yes, I love that. It's straight coding instead of queer coding. I love it.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, how the turntables.
I forgot there was a microphone. But, anyway, it's just great. And it was so fun, too, because it feels kind of like the whole, that moment in 2021 when sea shanties became popular?
Oh, yeah.
It really kind of feels like that whole sea shanty thing sort of primed everybody for a show about pirates. where the captain's whole brand was just polite menace.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
And
just
overshadowing them with fashion.
right. You just had to remake pirate fashion because it's just so bland. And sometimes a bit shabby.
Oh my gosh.
Do you want to talk about the fashion?
Yeah, I do a little bit, but also just take a moment with that social media thing, because the TikTok presence of the Our Flag Means Death stuff, I don't think you're on TikTok.
No.
It was incredible.
Brilliant.
It was incredible. And like Vico Ortiz is on TikTok and like, it's a thirst trap every day. And I'm like, thank you, Daddy. I would like another. Thank you. I've been very good. But it like developed this momentum and really helped propel the show in such a beautiful way. And like, again, yeah, the fashion is such a big thing for me. And I loved that they were like, well, yeah, we know like the normal pirate fashion, but we're the gay pirates. So of course it must be camp and it must be fabulous. And he must have an entire like walk-in closet curated by season on his ship. Like, this ship is a TARDIS. There's no way all of this stuff is actually on this ship, because I've seen them. They're not that big. But I love that walk-in closet with all my soul. Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure if you're here, you're familiar with Our Flag Means Death. How did you hear about it first?
I forced one of the audience members to get on it because I made the depression robe from it, but I put wizard sleeves on it because I needed it so much in my life. There was no official merch for the first year and a half that it existed. I don't believe there's any official merch even to this point, but Target had merch that was adjacent. So I bought all of it and then I forced it on all of my friends.
I'm pretty sure I'm also responsible for at least one audience member watching the show.
I can thoroughly blame TikTok for getting me on. Absolutely. And probably Vico Ortiz directly.
Mhm.
Where are you from? Oh, there. Well, I shall go there as well. Thank you. Yes. Anyone else? Yeah,
My
Jen.
crew forced me because they said I had to, because they're like, Captain, you must.
They were correct.
They were absolutely right.
100%. Yeah. So good. Anyone else want to share where you like got hooks? As it were. Anyway, okay. Thank you. This is such a bad joke. So, but also, this is like such a wonderful show about pirates, but they, from the get-go, it's clear they're like, history schmistery. It is absolutely historical fantasy. So let's talk about the historical fantasy of it all a little bit. Charity, would you like to like take us off on that?
So it is set in history, but not a history that we would recognize because it was gay and accepting. But also there was a real Blackbeard. There is a real Stede Bonnet. They did meet. But we're not sure for how long. It's probably like 5 minutes once, but that does not matter because we ran with it otherwise. Stede Bonnet has been mentioned in a couple of other historical fiction things, but they took it in a different direction. They made him an actual pirate, and I don't like that. I want a plant-saving fop. But with the historical inaccuracies, they also got a lot of accurate things, such as the plea for clemency, which you could turn tail and become one of the people of the crown. You could, but it really wasn't a safe line of work either, unless you were already moneyed and landed, which a good thing Stede was, because Stede had money and a land and a wife and kids, but we don't talk about them.
And she'd like us not to talk about her, because she's happy to be a widow.
Yes.
A fun, artistic widow.
And I think she is living her best life.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like happy for her
Yeah.
where that went in the show.
Oh, that made me so happy.
But I do think that one of the fun things about the show is that it's kind of surprising what they get historically accurate and where the fantasy is. So like my favorite thing is that it's very accurate that pirates would be that gay. And like a lot of people are like, that's fantastical. No one was doing gay things in the 1700s. And I'm like, au contraire, mon frère.
Oh, no.
They were very gay all the time. Gay was happening. They were very much gaying it up. And so I love that, like, that part is very historical. But, you know, the conviviality, the emotional availability, the like, we're going to be like a bunch of cinnamon rolls who have pirate group therapy, essentially. That shit is definitely not about historical accuracy. But I like that the fantasy of it all allows us to have that as part of the story, because I think it makes it a pirate story I want to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why when I heard originally about Our Flag Means Death and that it was about pirates, I was like, pass. So, but when I found out what it was about more, I really wanted to get into it. It's like someone got a hold of the Little Golden, My First Pirate book, and took the character names out of it and then was like, but I'm going to make it like this, you know? So they took it and just did this with it. So it's absolutely fanfic of, I've heard these pirate names and I want to give them this world to live in that is wonderful and fantastical. And there's a gentleman pirate.
Oh, I love the Little Golden Book of Piracy. That's so good. And like, I'm not anti-pirate stuff, but especially during the pandemic, I didn't want a lot of violence and gore and depression. And like, you got me watching Black Sails, and I was like, I don't know about this Black Sails stuff. And Tanya was
I
like,
did warn her about certain things.
but no, I wouldn't have even given it a chance. But you were like, no, actually, it's still gay. And I was like, then I'm in. And I'm like, okay. And also, we're past the worst of the worst times. So I can have this kind of like more gritty, more edgy stuff. But in 2021, that is not what I wanted. I wanted cozy cinnamon roll, Steve bought it, and their handmade pirate flags.
Yes, I just rewatched the first episode, and them making their flags I loved it so much when he's just like, cats are terrifying. They steal souls and eat children. Yeah, I love that so much. And then also the library. You were talking about the closet of clothing, the library that he had. And when Mr. British dude came on board and he was like, an entire library, who does that? I'm like, anyone I want to be friends with would absolutely sneak an entire library onto a pirate ship. So, yeah.
Well, and they weren't really like getting a lot of loot in the ship, so they had plenty of, they needed the ballast.
One of the funny, like to the history part, I had read that the creator of the show, David Jenkins, when he found out Steed was a real person, and like basically like he kind of was doing a little research, and then he basically like hits up Taika Waititi and he's like, did you know they were real people? Like Steed was real. They actually met each other. And then he was like, do you want me to go anywhere with the history part? And Taika was essentially like, no, stop reading. Just go with it.
Hard pass. Do not look. Do not pass go.
And like the Black Sails thing, it's like I have a close friend who for years was like trying to get me to watch Black Sails. And then it finally, like, we decided, like, 2021, my husband and I binged Black Sails. And then 2022, it's like, oh, look, it's another pirate show. And then we watched it, like, oh, this is also a gay pirate show. Fabulous.
In fact, very fabulous.
Yes. Yeah, Black Sails is great.
The historical
Black Sails is violence porn versus fashion porn. Just so you know, that's the trigger warning.
That's why I haven't watched it yet. I'm like, no, I'm good with just these gay pirates. I'm good with that. And the historical aspect of it, just that they brought in Anne Bonny.
Oh yeah.
And that it was Minnie Driver. I was so excited that I'm like, Minnie Driver's in it and she's playing Anne Bonny. Yeah. I was so excited for season 2. Yeah. I was so excited for season 2.
She's so hot.
Yes, she is.
I only sad she wasn't in it more.
I know. Yeah, I wish she would have been in it more.
Yeah. I'm happy to see, as an aside, I'm really happy to see Minnie Driver having some of these fun, like, little roles and things where she's like, I'm in my best middle-aged lady era, and I don't care if you like me. And I'm like, oh, girl, that's great. I love it. But we've got this wonderful fantastical, historical fantasy that is cozy, that is queer, that is pirates. And it kind of feels like, how did that get past any production company? How did we get that? And like, what a complete little golden gilded gem of a show. And so as queer folks, especially at this time in history, I think having something like that is such a gift, because there's a lot of pushback, and there's not a lot of really joyful, uplifting popular culture. And so I thought it would be fun if we talked a little bit about some of the queer tropes in this show in particular. And like, of course, we're going to talk about found family because that's my personal favorite of all time. But would anyone like to get us started on some of the tropes?
So the big one for me that I like that immediately comes to mind is the fact that the show they killed the show after 2 seasons. And there is a trope in media that's bury your gays. And so it's like, are you familiar with that trope? Everybody in here? Okay. So bury your gays is basically, if there is a gay person that is really fleshed out in a good queer character, they're going to kill them. They always do. And so I don't know if it comes from, originally we were talking about queer coded versus, now straight coded villains. Really like that concept. But villains, originally, a lot of them were queer coded. They were bad. They needed to die way back when because of the morality codes that they had in media. And that just kind of never went away. Like, they have queer characters that are full characters now, and they still kill them off. Like, if you Google bury your gays, I'm just warning you, you might want to get like a nice hot chocolate or something cozy before you read it, because it's heartbreaking. But it's like, it's not just the characters anymore. They did it with the show. Like, they finally gave us this cozy gay pirate show that people loved and they could relate with. And they had a whole episode about like drag queens on the boat. You know what I mean? Like, they had the Clips episode. It's just, you loved these characters, and instead of killing them off one by one, they just tank the entire show. So that makes me really mad. That made me really mad, because it's right there that's what they did. After the first season, they actually cut the budget by like 40% for season 2. Yeah.
I did not know.
And then they were mad the viewership went down. It's just like, okay, so you're putting everyone, you're cutting the budget almost in half, and then you're just like, oh, and the show's not as good. I loved it. I mean, again, and Bonnie, Minnie Driver, I was happy. So yeah.
And I love that they also brought in the I can never remember her name, and I forgot to look it up, but basically she was like this legendary like Chinese pirate queen.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
My favorite player in all history.
She's amazing.
Yes.
80,000 sailors under.
Yeah.
I just
just.
no, that's okay.
No, thank you. Yeah,
we
that's
love
awesome.
that. But I
Also,
just
when she stepped on the screen, I stood up and cheered.
I like when she came on. I remember like when she was introduced, I was just sitting there like, is she, like, my husband and I was like, is she? And then she was, and we were like, and she was so perfectly cast.
Best pirate ever, and done her wrong because she was paid. Historically, she was paid by the Chinese government to stop being a pirate because she was that damn good.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
So when they blew up all her ships with a clock.
How is
Yeah. Again, it's not the historical accuracy that they were going for. But again, it's the fact that they were diverse in the pirates that they showed on this. It was not just the white dude pirates that you think of,
She was definitely not the same pirate, but
Yeah. Again, history.
it's fine?
History.
Yeah.
where the money's good.
Right. It's the money. Yeah.
As an aside, if you love her as a pirate, she features in the new Time Bandits show, and she's a wonderful character on that as well. So, so we talked about bury your gays, and I do not love that happened, but I love framing it in that way because it really felt like they buried the whole cast of queers. And I just want to say, if you do go looking for that trope and more information, you will probably find a book by Chuck Tingle called Bury Your Gays. And if you like horror, you should read it because Chuck Tingle is perfect and has never done anything wrong in his life.
This shirt is a Chuck Tingle shirt, actually. my Resist the Void with the tentacle monster. Also, he has another horror book called Camp Damascus. He's a jelly bean of a human. He's wonderful. So if you've never heard of him, go out and find his books. Those two mainly.
Yeah.
Mainly, yeah.
Although I love the Tinglers.
The
I
Tinglers
have
are fun,
no
yeah,
shame,
yeah.
But they are an acquired taste. I
Yes,
think.
yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
The cups.
Yeah.
Yes, the cups are, there was no merch. Target made merch. So this is the exact same pattern as the Depression robe coat.
Oh my God.
I had to buy them. I have a full set.
Oh my
What does
God.
it say on the inside?
On the inside of this one, it says, "Hello, gorgeous."
Oh.
Oh my God.
And on the oranges, specifically for Vico Ortiz's character,
Aw.
Jim,
Aw.
who was the child of an orange farmer,
Yeah.
who was also trained to be an assassin, as you do. Citrus and murder, it makes sense.
I'm down with that.
But oranges, with the color scheme of their true love, and the oranges, and the inside says, "Hola bonita,"
Oh, that's so
my
cool.
God.
because there was no official merch, and I am that person. Our house is decorated really, really nerdy, because it's every merch that I can possibly find of, oh, I need that. But they buried any kind of merchandising. They did not let anyone buy official Blackbeard shirts or Steed shirts. You can't buy a Steed scarf anywhere. I've tried. You can find patterns for them on like Ravelry, but they're hideous. You can do historical fashion, but you cannot buy stuff. So I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who got me the official fabric.
Ooh.
And I made the official Depression robe that Steed, first time he gives tea to Blackbeard, he's wearing this robe and he gives him the tea. He says, 7 sugars like you like it,
Yeah.
which is beautiful. And then when trauma happens, Blackbeard wraps himself in the robe and eats marmalade out of a jar. And it's absolutely the equivalent of bonbons and ice cream, and I love it so much.
Yeah.
I made it.
So
It's like the anti-scurvy edition, where it's like it's something.
I love that. No, but also I love that you brought this up, Charity, because you're sort of talking about another fantastic trope that happens in the show, which is hurt comfort. So like Steed, who's our little cinnamon roll, who probably should not be left to his own devices on the ocean ever. Oh, Steed, is like, he's just like a puppy with all this love. And then we've got, Blackbeard, who's so traumatized. And Steve's just like, I'm going to like sweetness you into a mental recovery.
Grumpy and Sunshine.
It is,
Yeah.
absolutely. It is absolutely Grumpy Sunshine. But it's also like, it's both Grumpy Sunshine and Hurt Comfort, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
That kind of started as enemies to lovers.
Yes.
It's all of them.
Oh my gosh. I love those. And there are a lot of like romance tropes at play in the show, which is, I think, another part of this like cozy historical fantasy experience that they really leaned into. And also, I think it's a little bit of like the studio perhaps does not have proper respect for the monolith that is romance. And that's a whole other topic. But
There are 2 panels tomorrow about it.
yeah. Tanya, did you have a favorite trope from the show that they sort of investigated a little bit?
I don't always know like the names for tropes really, but
We can Pictionary it, just describe it, and we'll.
I always kind of one of the things I really enjoyed was I really should have brushed up on the names of everybody, but like the person who eventually became like Jim and their partner,
Mhm.
how they kind of like they're such good friends, and they like danced all around it all through season 1, and then finally they got together and it was like "Eee!"
Yeah.
And that was so lovely. And I also really loved the main, like the first mate and the person who ended up becoming his partner. I mean, obviously, like, we don't know the fate of the first mate at the end of season 1 because Blackbeard threw him into the ocean. But in season 2, of course, we find basically him and many other members of the Revenge on her pirate ships. And when everyone's reunited, it's just so glorious that the first mate and his boyfriend get married.
Yeah.
It's just so sweet.
Oh my God.
But I really kind of like that whole like, oh, we're friends, but I think I love you. Do you love me? And occasionally that trope can be extremely frustrating to me because I don't like it when characters just don't just have a conversation.
Mm.
But I think
it happens in real life with people.
right, and it's equally
not really.
Oh.
Realizing they're in a relationship
Yeah.
for 4 years.
Who would you be talking about? Oh my God. So
Stop telling her business.
I know.
Every romance novel would be like a quarter of the length if they just communicated.
Yeah.
absolutely.
but
But
it's like I thought that they handled it really well.
Yeah.
no, it's beautiful. And like I think that one is called like Friends to Lovers.
Oh,
Yep.
that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And then also you have a little bit of slow burn with Vico Ortiz and their partner. But it's also
Well,
Friends to Lovers. Like
yeah.
there's a lot of Friends to Lovers in this show. There's like, feed me more. So,
And then there's also a little bit of why choose
yeah.
with Black Pete, who
Yeah.
will draw anyone and will sleep with everyone. Because why choose? You
Why
can
choose?
have all of them and still be happy.
Yeah.
It's not a denigration. Whereas Jim did not want to be seen as anything, didn't want to be seen.
Do not perceive me.
Do not perceive. But my favorite line is when Jim was running around screaming at everyone, I'm not a mermaid! I'm not a mermaid!
God, that's such a great moment.
It's just like, but you are a sparkly mermaid. Princess? Prince? We don't know. We don't care about you're beautiful.
Mer person.
Mer
A
person.
beautiful non-binary bae. It's
Yeah.
so gorgeous.
Merbay. There you go.
Merbae.
Yes.
Merbae.
And be Merbay.
You heard
That's
it
so
here.
cute.
Yeah.
Mermaid. The
Mermaid.
new
I
in
love
merch.
that.
Yeah, we need the merch. So that you were about to say something.
I was. Yeah. Izzy Hands is another one. I love Izzy Hands. I love that actor. I love his voice. I love everything about him. Just kind of like this unspoken, unrequited love between him and the captain.
Yeah.
You know, so there's that too. You know.
I have to say, I did not, and I think it's the audience is not meant to like Izzy when he's first introduced.
Agreed.
But he like really grew on me, especially in season 2, because after the trauma and Blackbeard just goes off the rails, like worse than he was before he ever met Steed. Everyone who remained on the Revenge is just like it's hard. It is hard to watch because everybody is just burned out. They're terrified all the time. And Izzy Hands, who has been the one that's been like the hardcore like murder pirate, is now the one who's like, listen, this is too much. And I love whenever like he is the one who ends up comforting everyone, he's the only one who feels like he can approach Blackbeard to be like, look, dude, calm down. But that gets really dicey. And it's so interesting, that portion, because I mean, season 1 is like, wee, until of course you get to the end. And then for a while, you'll cry every time you hear The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. And
I'm still crying about it.
I was driving home from somewhere and it came on the classic rock station. I'm driving along on the road, just, oh my God. Because in my head, I'm just imagining him on the deck.
Yeah.
And he's
The
like,
toe
you came back. I never left. Wink. And the toe touch. But it's
Yes,
like-
that was where their touch. Yeah.
Time my heart swoons.
And I really loved in season 2, though, when everybody is in that dark place and they're all trying to find their way out and find their way through. And they learn this, they gain this new appreciation for Izzy because he's the only one that can help them.
He's the pirate ship mom.
He
He
really
is, yeah.
is. He's
Uh-huh.
everybody's pirate mom.
Yeah.
And then Beard cuts off his leg. And the other crew members make him like a prosthetic leg, basically. And that moment is so sweet because he's thinking, it feels like And you get his journey in season 2, where he's clearly had like that unrequited love. And it feels like when you look at it through like the gay pirate lens, he's been like really closeted and he feels a lot of complicated feelings about this. And so he doesn't know what to do with it. He doesn't really.
He's the ultimate self-hating gay at first. And then he's the redeemed hero later.
Yeah.
Like much of our self-hating gays eventually become.
Hopefully.
And it also really kind of feels like he kind of has a reckoning with himself. He has a reckoning with everybody else because he realizes that everybody else actually cares about him because he doesn't think that they do.
Self-hating gay. It's a trope. It's a thing.
Like you were saying, it's they pull through as a crew. Like as a crew, they come together because they have to go through just this darkness together, but they do it together and they come through it together as a crew.
Yeah. And that's actually was one of my favorite things about the entire show is that he doesn't want to be like the scary domineering. I'm the captain and what I say goes. He's like, what do you think, everybody? Let's sit down. Let's talk it through as a crew. And everybody else has been on pirate crews and they know that's not really a thing. And they're like, what? But then they're like, this is great. This is a really nice working environment.
I love that. A much less toxic working environment.
Yes.
To like have a more collaborative.
And that is actually one of the more historically correct things in it. Because yes, unless they were in a battle, they could vote to cast it out.
Yes.
It was incredibly democratic.
Almost subversively so. Love that. So we also talking about this, working as a crew and our tropes. I just want to come back to my personal favorite that I seek out in almost every piece of fiction I consume, the found family. And I think especially for queer folks, many of us don't have a connection with our biological family or all of our family, depending on what's going on. And so we're often creating our family unit from friends and the people who do show up in our life. And I felt like that was such a beautiful reality of the queer experience. So even though this is historical fantasy, the history is sort of like out the window, they still capture some things that are deeply real about the experience of being a queer person. And what's more of a family bond than being on a pirate ship and trying not to die together? Like that's gonna really, like, that trauma bond is for life.
Yes.
But I love that, and it like really drew me in watching all these people who were like unable or felt that they couldn't fit in or they couldn't trust someone, that eventually they're like ride or die with all of these folks.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah, a pirate ship would be the ultimate ride or die.
Yeah.
Literally, like, yes.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah, it's like if one person slacks at their job, it could mean the worst for everyone.
Yeah.
Or
So
caught and hung.
Right.
as we are coming towards the kind of end of our conversation today, I think we want to like just focus a little bit on the campaign to like save the show and bring it back and to give it at least a third season. And like this has become, I'd say, the new normal. We were talking about this, a very typical scenario now for some of these beautiful queer shows where they're like, oh, let's see how much the fan base can really raise money and raise excitement. And if they beg hard enough, maybe we'll give them a third show. So would you like to talk a little bit about the campaign to bring the show back and give it a third season?
Sure. Yes. So as we know, it was canceled after 2 seasons, and there have been multiple petitions to try, like there's one currently going on right now that they just hit like 90,000 signatures and they need 150,000. When they say they need 150,000, I'm like, that doesn't mean that they're going to automatically bring it back. That's just a goal. So, but there have been these petitions that have been going around for a year or two now. There also was, they raised a bunch of money and they got a billboard in Times Square. and it was Renew as a Crew was like the website that you could go to for that. And so there was a bunch of people raising a lot of money to try and bring it back. There was drama even within the little community that was raising money. So it's just like anytime you get people together and there's money involved, people lose their minds. So, but they currently are trying to get it through Netflix or Amazon Prime. Either one of those would be fine, probably. They need the money. And the thing is, I saw something last week or so that was saying, for the longest time, when queer people were saying, we want the representation in the shows, can you just show us in a positive light in your shows? And they were like, no, you need to make your own shows then. It's like, and then we made our own shows and then they cancel them. So
No,
it's
not
like,
like
not
that.
like that. Not like that.
Too much joy, too much happiness.
Right.
Where's the
We're not
suffering?
Mhm.
Like, where are the gay people suffering and dying and having AIDS? And it's like, well, did you
They're
know
dead.
we don't have to die from AIDS anymore?
Right.
Oh my God. That's another panel topic, and I'm going to rein it in. So the campaign, not yet successful, but still ongoing, which is
It is. Yeah. It's still ongoing.
I didn't realize that. That's great to hear.
Yeah. Because I just did some light Googling, and
I have signed
one of
every
the things
panel,
that
every
came up
petition,
was
donated
a
money.
petition. So yeah.
I love
but-
a little light Googling.
Yeah, a little light Googling. Pass the time. But that's the thing is, again, they want queer people make your own shows, make your own media, do that. Well, even if they're gonna make it, we're the ones that are having to try and raise money for it. It's like, we'll do it maybe if you raise enough money for us to do it. When it's been shown through these petitions and all of they bought a billboard in Times Square. Like, that's not something that I've ever really seen to try and bring a show back before. There's clearly a bunch of people who want this to happen, and they're just not doing it.
The only
I don't
other
understand
time
why.
I know of for sure that was done was Winona Earp, which
Oh, yeah.
we'll talk about later tonight at
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
Yeah. More queer media. Yeah. So, do we think that Ed and Steve lived happily ever after, since we're sort of in this stasis and we don't know what's going to happen, and we may or may not get our third season if we don't flagellate and beg and raise enough money for a bunch of million and billionaires.
Right.
Anyway, reining it in. So, do we think that Ed and Steve are having their happy ending right now?
We get to do art fan fiction on the pirate fan fiction.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I have read a lot of fan fiction. I know you're shocked, but my extremely well curated fan fiction collection, they don't end up happily ever after until after the emotional availability of Steed making Blackbeard go to therapy.
I love it.
They have to have
All
their
of them.
third scene
I'm talking
breakup.
at least 150 different fan fictions. All therapy first, fucking later. It's beautiful and it makes me so happy.
These are not people who dated in the 90s, but
These are children at this point. They're only in their 20s, maybe 30s. They don't know yet.
so good. Tanya, what do you think?
First of all, I think it's great that all the people writing that fan fiction recognize that people need to like figure their shit out sometimes. I really do like to think that when they decided to move into that little house on the beach, that they did like kind of live happily ever after. They opened maybe a little like equivalent of a bed and breakfast or an inn or something.
Restaurant and bait shack.
Yeah, because like that's kind of what they were talking about, like opening an inn. And it's like, I just really love that for them.
Yeah.
And I would love to see Ed be able to stay being Ed and leave Blackbeard behind, because he really seemed to want to do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it seemed kind of like he reverted to Blackbeard because it's all he really ever knew. Nobody showed him how to be Ed anymore until he met Steed.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
And that goes back to like the end of season 1 breakup type thing. Well, breakup. Where when he was like putting the black makeup back on and all of that, like my heart was just breaking.
Yeah.
Like that was just soul crushing, because it's one of those things where he made himself vulnerable and he felt like he could be this other person with Steed, and then that was taken away, and so immediately those walls went back up. And it's like that's something you see in real life too. That's very much a real experience. So yeah.
And of course, Steed had to go on his own journey because when confronted with this, again, now he's realizing, oh, I love this guy. This is different. This is strange. And then when he like basically accidentally kills the British officer in the woods, freaks out and just goes home.
Yeah.
And then he has to like reckon with the fact that no, he actually does love Ed. And that was such a wonderful scene with Mary.
Yeah. I like that because she was doing so well, and then he got to go and do himself too, and I really like that. Yeah. I want to think that they live happily ever after, but I also want to find something for Ed to do. Like, he's a puppy that needs enrichment, you know what I mean? Like, he's used to this life of piracy, he's used to going and doing stuff. He needs a job. Like, they either need to start a farm or something where he can go out and just get that energy out constantly, because sitting and reading, he wears fine things well, but also he has energy that he needs to get out. I don't think that he would be happy just running a bakery, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that something needs to happen for him to really have his enrichment that he needs as well. But I love them together. I love the grumpy and sunshine trope, as long as the grumpy doesn't bring the sunshine down. Because that in real life, in my experience, is generally what happens. So as long as the grumpy can find something to do to help elevate himself, I think that they'll live happily ever after for sure.
Oh, I love that. I don't care. They're happy. They're the happy gunkles, the pirate gunkles, who like welcome all the new pirate babies. And they're like, this is our gay pirate shack, and we are going to mentor you into good, emotionally available pirates who take down imperialism and go. That's my fantastical vision for them.
I'm just imagining Steed being like, welcome. Today, we're going to talk about how to be a polite menace.
You did that accent really well, actually. That was lovely. I can't do New Zealand to save my life.
Do you follow any of them on social media? Like, do you follow Reese Darby or Vico Ortiz or Taika Waititi?
It's been a while since I've seen any of their posts because sometimes algorithms are trash.
True.
Yes.
True.
Yeah.
I am personally obsessed with Reese Darby because I don't think he was playing Steed. I think he was just being Reese Darby in different clothing, because he really is that much of a cinnamon roll in real life.
He seems like it.
Yeah.
And it just makes me so happy that there are good, wonderful weirdos out there who are genuinely sweethearts.
Yeah.
So we have just a couple of minutes left before the next panel. And I know because I'm in the next panel, so you can just like hang out. But before we say goodbye to all of you lovely people who are here with us and who stayed through the whole queer nonsense, thank you. I'd love to know if you all have a favorite episode or a favorite character from the show that you would care to share with us. And panelists, that question is open to you as well.
I know that he has a favorite character in episodes. Yeah,
sure.
very passionate about it. Yeah.
Yes.
His journey is fantastic, and starting the show, like you said, as a straight-coded villain, and turning around to open himself up and be a fantastic human being that he is. His Calypso moment is my favorite in the entire show.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I love that.
It was beautiful.
and his voice.
His voice is so good. Yeah.
Oh my God. His voice is so good.
Mhm.
My favorite is 1000% Jim. I love Jim more than any other character on the show, because murder. I am a very violent person. I don't do it. I would not survive jail. But I like ultra violent things, while also being the nicest, sweetest little homebody who will take care of your person, because that's what you do. Obviously, it's what you do. But do it now. I can't believe you're not doing it now. You eat your oranges because you're gonna get scurvy, you freaking idiots. You know, that kind of love is my love language. And I'm okay with that, which is why Jim is my favorite.
Very vehement.
Yeah.
Very vehement.
Yes.
I mean, like you do.
I'm not sure who my favorite is.
You've already said who your favorite was because it's your favorite. Yeah. Uh-huh. I was like, if you want to talk more about her, feel free.
Be enthusiastic.
Yes.
So this is a great time for enthusiasm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure who my favorite really was, but one of the things that I really enjoyed was them bringing more pirates that were like based on real pirates.
Yeah.
And it's like Calico Jack when he shows up in season 1, having watched Black Sails the year before, we're like, and it turns out, yeah, Calico Jack was a little shitty.
Oh my
Mhm.
God. So good.
I did really love Steed and Blackbeard and Jim. I just really love the whole crew of the Revenge.
They're so good. They're so good. I don't know. I love Jim because I want to go out on a date with Jim.
Yeah, I want to go on a date with Vico. I want to emulate the joy of Jim. There's a difference.
Okay, that's fair. Con O'Neill, who plays Izzy Hands, is just like such a brilliant actor, and he has such an incredible arc with that character that, like, by the end of the show, is like, you precious, perfect Jeff. If anyone comes from you, I will murder them. So he's like got a big piece of my heart. But ultimately, like, how can I not love Steve? I too want to be a very polite menace. So
Right.
he's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is our time. And I want
We
to.
have a couple of minutes.
Oh, we have a couple more.
We also have to let people walk to the next panels.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to read the speech before we leave.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
The speech.
The end of season 2, Izzy's meeting with one of the British soldiers. I think it's the guy who wanted to play pirate. I don't remember, but that's not really important who he's talking to. It's what he says. Because he just has this really beautiful monologue where he says, "You don't know the first thing about piracy, do you? It's not about glory. It's not about getting what you want. It's about belonging to something when the world has told you you're nothing. It's about finding the family to kill for when yours are long dead. It's about letting go of ego for something larger, the crew." And that just, by the end of the speech, I was in tears.
Yeah.
No, that's our flag means death.
Yeah.
Izzy Hands, who started as one of the most disagreeable, scary, awful characters and then ended like that.
Yeah.
And I also really think it's an important message right now.
Yeah, it is.
Find your family, because your
Yeah.
family is your pirate crew.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other last notes to add as we are wrapping up, my darling friends? That's a really good note to end.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's
I like
perfect.
that. Mhm.
Tanya.
Cool.
Great end to a wonderful panel. Thank you all for being here this morning and
Yes,
joining
thanks
us.
for coming.
And you know what? If you want to do pirate stuff, you should definitely talk to that lady right there in the pink. She's like a great pirate rep, bringing cool pirate shit out into the world. So.
You're making me like keep going with it though. Like I keep saying, no, I'm gonna stop with pirate stuff. I'm gonna stop with pirate
Piracy does not leave your soul.
I mean,
stuff. And you doesn't.
There are many things you could channel that energy into.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, no shame in that game. All right, everyone, have a great rest of your morning. If you want to talk about more cosplay nonsense, we're about to have another cosplay panel right here in like 3 minutes. And so I will see you guys then. All right.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Love you back.
Bye. See you later, Jen. Thanks for coming to the panel.
I had